The rain hadn't started yet, but it would. Bull Walker could smell it in the air, that metallic tang that came before a Texas storm. He stood at his apartment window, coffee mug warming his scarred hands, watching the sun bleed into the horizon.
Yes, we're at the diner.
5:30 in the
It's
morning.
urgent.
Same time, same window, same ritual for 15 years. His apartment looked like a Marine barracks. Bed made tight enough to bounce a quarter. Boots polished and lined up by the door. Everything at
Your
right
Honor,
angles.
the
Everything
evidence
in its place, the
clearly
kind of order that
demonstrates-
kept chaos at bay. In the bathroom, dog tags hung from the mirror. In the dresser drawer, a purple heart he never displayed. And on the nightstand, face down, a photograph he couldn't bear to look at but couldn't throw away. Bull was 65 years old, 22 years in the Marine Corps, 3 combat tours, Hell's Angels Motorcycle Club for 14 years after that, and then nothing. Just the routine, just the waiting. He dressed in silence. Faded jeans, work boots, plain gray t-shirt that had seen better days. His hands moved with practiced efficiency, strapping the ankle holster that held his .38 revolver. Legal carry, old habit from the service. Some habits you keep because they keep you alive. The Harley waited outside, a 1987 Softail he'd rebuilt 3 times, chrome gleaming even in the pre-dawn light. He ran his hand along the fuel tank, checking for condensation. Inspected the chain tension, verified the fluid levels. Military thoroughness applied to civilian life. His neighbor's kid waved from across the parking lot. Bull nodded back but didn't smile. Hadn't smiled in 8,030 days. Not since the day he came home to an empty house and 2 flag-draped coffins. The Harley's engine rumbled to life. The sound echoed off the apartment buildings, announcing his departure to a world that barely noticed he existed. Route 54 stretched ahead, empty in the early morning, leading to the one place Bull went every single day. May's Diner appeared on the horizon like a beacon. Neon sign flickering. Chrome details catching the first rays of sunlight. Red vinyl booths visible through the plate glass windows. The kind of place that hadn't changed since 1965 and had no intention of changing now. 6:47. Same time he'd walked through that door every morning for 5 years. Maggie Sullivan already had his coffee poured. She was 58, auburn hair going gray lines around her eyes that spoke of too many double shifts and not enough sleep. But her smile was genuine as she gestured to his usual spot. "Morning, Bull. Corner booths waiting." He nodded, moving past the counter to the booth in the back to the wall. Clear view of the entrance and the emergency exit. Combat habits died hard. Some of them you didn't want to die at all. The coffee was hot and black, no sugar, no cream. Just the bitter burn that told him he was awake and alive and facing another day. 5 years you've been coming here," Maggie said, refilling his cup even though he'd barely touched it. "Same time, same booth, same order. You ever think about mixing it up? Consistency is underrated, Maggie." "So is living." She touched his shoulder briefly, a gesture of comfort he didn't know how to accept. "You doing okay today?" Bull took a long sip of coffee. "I'm here." "That's a start." She moved away to tend to other customers. A trucker at the counter who nodded respect when he caught Bull's eye. An elderly couple in the corner booth, Harold and June, married 60 years, still holding hands over their pancakes. And Deputy Wade Carter, who just walked in with the wary expression cops got when they saw too many people with violent pasts. Carter's radio crackled to life. "All units, Amber Alert active. Missing children. 7-year-old female, 6-month-old male, last seen 3 months ago. Mother deceased. Children believed to be on the streets in the El Paso area." Bull's head turned slightly, listening but not reacting. Old training kicking in. Gather intelligence, assess the situation. Don't commit until you know the terrain. Deputy Carter caught Bull watching, nodded curtly. The kind of acknowledgement men gave each other when they'd both seen things they couldn't unsee. Harold's voice carried across the diner loud enough for everyone to hear. "Kids today don't understand. In our time, men protected children. Wasn't a question. Bull spoke quietly, not looking up from his coffee. Still isn't. Maggie paused in refilling June's water glass. World needs more men like you, Bull. Old school. Old school's just another word for obsolete. Or reliable. She moved away again and Bull pulled out his wallet. Worn leather held together more by habit than by stitching. Inside was his license, $63 in cash, and a photograph folded so many times the creases had worn white. He didn't unfold it. Never did. But his thumb traced the outline through the leather, following a pattern he'd memorized years ago. You ever gonna tell me about that picture? Maggie asked, appearing with his breakfast. Eggs over easy, bacon, toast, same order every morning. Nothing to tell. 5 years, Bull, still carrying it. That's something. Bull picked up his fork, put it down, picked it up again. A promise I couldn't keep. The words hung in the air between them. Maggie's expression softened, but she knew better than to push. Some wounds you didn't probe. Some scars ran too deep for casual conversation over breakfast. Bull ate in silence. The diner filled up with the morning rush. Construction workers grabbing coffee to go. Retired folks settling in for the early bird special. The rhythm of a small town starting its day. Through the window, Bull saw movement near the dumpsters. A small figure, thin and quick, digging through trash. A child. Couldn't have been more than 7 or 8. For a moment their eyes met through the glass. Then the child disappeared into the alley. Bull's jaw clenched. His hand tightened around his coffee mug. Every instinct he'd honed over 22 years in combat told him to move, to investigate, to engage, but he stayed seated. 22 years in combat also taught you when to engage and when to hold position, when to commit and when to wait for better intelligence. He'd spent 15 years learning to ignore those instincts, learning to be nobody, learning to let the world happen without him. He finished his breakfast, left a $20 bill on the table for a $12 check, nodded to Maggie, walked out into the climbing heat of a Texas morning. The parking lot was nearly empty now, just as Harley and a few early shoppers heading to the grocery store next door. Bull did his pre-ride check. Tires, chain, fluids, everything in order, everything ready. He swung his leg over the seat, settled his weight, reached for the ignition. "Mister, look under the bike!" The voice cut through the morning air like a gunshot, high-pitched, desperate, terrified. Bull's hand went to his ankle holster before his brain processed the threat assessment. No weapon, no immediate danger, just a child, the same child from the dumpsters, running full speed across the parking lot, bare feet slapping against hot asphalt, hair wild and matted face streaked with dirt and something that might have been blood. A girl, 7 years old, maybe younger, wearing an adult-sized Metallica t-shirt that hung to her knees, torn and filthy. Her eyes were wide with the kind of terror Bull had seen in war zones, the terror of someone who knew death was close and closing fast. "Look under the bike. Look, please." Bull shifted his weight, leaned to the side, looked down. At first he saw nothing, just shadows, just the concrete beneath his Harley. Then his eyes adjusted. There, wedged carefully between the wheels, wrapped in what had once been a hospital blanket, was a bundle. Too small, too still. Bull's heart, which hadn't truly beaten in years, suddenly hammered against his ribs. He swung off the bike, dropped to his knees, reached under with hands that had pulled wounded Marines from burning vehicles, hands that had held rifles and held dying men, hands that had forgotten how to be gentle but remembered in that instant. The bundle was warm, barely. Bull pulled it free, cradled it against his chest, and saw the face, a baby, 6 months old, maybe less, pale skin with a bluish tint around the lips, eyes closed, chest moving in shallow, irregular breaths that came too slow and too weak, tiny fingers curled into fists that had no strength. Jesus Christ. Bull's training kicked in. Assess the casualty, check for breathing, check for pulse. The baby was alive, but barely. Hypothermia despite the Texas heat. Dehydration, malnutrition. How long had this child been here? How long had it been since he'd eaten, been held, been warm? The girl reached him, grabbed his arm with both hands. "Is he okay? Please, is my brother okay?" Bull looked up at her, really looked at her for the first time. 7 years old with the eyes of someone 3 times that age. Haunted eyes, survivor's eyes. How long? His voice came out rougher than he intended. Since this morning. Maybe 10 hours. I didn't know what else to do. I hid him there because it looked safe. Big bike. Big man. I thought, her voice cracked, I thought you'd protect us from the police. How long has he been like this, not moving? Since noon. He was crying before that, but then he stopped and I couldn't wake him up and I didn't know what to do. I've been trying, but he won't wake up and... Stop! Bull stood the baby cradled against his chest. What's his name? Eli. His name is Eli. And yours, Lily. Bull looked at Lily, at Eli, at the parking lot around them, made a decision in the space between one heartbeat and the next, the kind of decision that changes everything, the kind you can't take back. Stay with me. Don't leave my side. Understand? Lily nodded, her whole body trembling. Bull turned and walked toward the diner. Not running. Running would cause panic. Running would make people ask questions before he had answers. But walking with purpose, walking like a man on a mission. Lily ran beside him, her small hand finding the edge of his jacket and holding on like her life depended on it. Because maybe it did. The diner door burst open. Maggie looked up from the coffee pot, saw Bull with a bundle against his chest. Saw the terrified girl beside him and immediately understood that something was very wrong. Maggie, I need towels, clean ones, and call 911. Maggie didn't ask questions, didn't hesitate. She grabbed a stack of clean towels from behind the counter, cleared the nearest booth with one sweep of her arm, and was already dialing her phone before Bull laid Eli down. The baby didn't move, didn't cry, didn't react at all. Bull wrapped him in the towels, trying to restore warmth, checking his vitals again. Pulse was there, but weak. Breathing was there, but shallow. This kid was circling the drain. 911, what's your emergency? May's Diner on Route 54. We have an infant in distress, approximately 6 months old. Severe dehydration, possible hypothermia, unresponsive. We need an ambulance now. Harold and June appeared with their blanket from the car. The trucker from the counter offered his water bottle. Deputy Carter stepped forward, hand on his radio face. Professionally blank, but eyes sharp. Bull, what's going on? Found this baby under my bike. Girl says she's his sister. Their mother's deceased. They've been on the streets for 3 months. Carter's expression didn't change, but something flickered in his eyes. Recognition. The Amber Alert. Yeah. Carter keyed his radio. Dispatch, this is Unit 12. Amber Alert, subjects located. May's Diner, Route 54, ambulance en route. Repeat, subjects located. Lily heard the words Amber Alert and screamed, No, you're taking him, you lied to me! She lunged for Eli, but Bull caught her, not roughly, not with force, but firmly. He turned her to face him, dropped to one knee so they were eye to eye. Listen to me. Your brother needs doctors, hospital, medicine, you understand? Lily was crying now, full body sobs. They'll separate us, that's what they do. They split up brothers and sisters, I heard about it. My friend Maria, they took her little sister away and she never saw her again. Maybe they will. But if we don't get him help right now, you'll lose him forever. Not to the system, to death. Which promise matters more, staying together or keeping him alive? Both. I promised Mom. I promised we'd stay together. Can't always have both, kid. Sometimes you gotta choose the one that matters most right now. Right now, keeping him alive matters most. Everything else comes after. You with me? Lily's sobs quieted to hiccups. She looked at Eli on the booth bench, so small and so still. Looked back at Bull. Nodded. Okay. The ambulance arrived 7 minutes later. Paramedics moved with practiced efficiency, taking vitals, starting an IV line, preparing Eli for transport. Their faces were professionally neutral, but Bull had been around enough medics to read the signs. This kid was in trouble. Severe dehydration, the lead paramedic said. Hypothermia despite ambient temperature, possible sepsis. We need to transport immediately. He looked around. Who's the guardian? Silence fell over the diner. Everyone looked at Bull. Deputy Carter spoke first. Bull CPS has been looking for these kids. There's an active case file. Then call them. But somebody needs to ride with that baby to the hospital. Family only, sir, the paramedic said. Lily stepped forward, small and thin and looking every bit the street kid she was. He's family. He saved us. The paramedic looked at Bull, at Lily, at Deputy Carter. Made a call that probably violated half a dozen regulations. Fine, but we're moving now. They loaded Eli onto the stretcher. The monitors beeped. The oxygen mask covered half his tiny face. Lily reached for his hand, but they were already wheeling him toward the ambulance. Hold on, a woman's voice, crisp, professional, exhausted. Everyone turned. A gray pantsuit, a clipboard, tired eyes that had seen too much and believed in too little. She walked through the diner door like she owned it. Heels clicking on the linoleum expression set in that careful neutrality government workers cultivated when they'd stopped believing people could surprise them. I'm Ms. Diane Reynolds, Child Protective Services. These would be Lily and Eli Brennan, I presume. Deputy Carter nodded. Yes, ma'am. Amber Alert subjects. Diane's eyes swept the scene. The baby on the stretcher, the terrified girl, the diner full of witnesses and Bull. Her gaze lingered on him and something flickered in her expression. Recognition. And you are? Robert Walker. Found them in distress. Baby needs immediate medical attention. Diane looked down at her tablet scrolling. Her eyebrows rose slightly. Mr. Walker, yes. You have quite a record. Bull felt the familiar weight settle on his shoulders. The past catching up. Always catching up. Ancient history. Right now that kid's dying. I appreciate your concern, Mr. Walker, but these children are wards of the state. I'll be riding with Eli to the hospital. Lily will come with me as well. No! Lily grabbed Bull's arm with both hands, small fingers digging in, terror in her eyes. I want him. I want to go with him. Sweetheart, I understand you're scared, but Mr. Walker is a stranger. He's not a stranger. He saved Eli. He's the only one who helped. Bull stood there, this tiny girl wrapped around his arm, and felt something crack inside his chest. Some wall he'd built 15 years ago and reinforced every day since. Some barrier between himself and the world that was suddenly full of holes. Maggie stepped forward. Ms. Reynolds, I've known Bull Walker for 5 years. He's the most decent man I know. Whatever his record says, whatever he did before right now, he's the only reason that baby's still alive. Let him help. Diane looked at Maggie, at Lily, at Bull, at the community of people who'd gathered in this diner, all of them waiting to see what she'd do. She sighed, the kind of sigh that carried years of impossible decisions and unsatisfactory compromises. Fine. Mr. Walker, you can follow the ambulance to the hospital, but understand these children are in state custody. Any interference with that custody, any violation of protocol, and you'll be removed. Are we clear, Crystal? Then let's move. The ambulance pulled away, lights flashing, sirens starting to wail. Lily climbed into Diane's sedan. Through the window, Bull saw her press her face against the glass, watching Eli's ambulance disappear down Route 54. Bull started his Harley. The engine roared to life. Maggie appeared at his elbow. Bull, what are you doing? The right thing, for once. You don't owe these kids anything. Bull looked at her, really looked at her. Yeah, I do. He kicked the bike into gear and followed. Behind him, unnoticed by everyone, a black Suburban with tinted windows sat in the far corner of the parking lot. Engine running. No license plate visible. When Bull's Harley disappeared down the road, the Suburban pulled out slowly and followed at a distance. Inside, a man in an expensive suit spoke into a phone. We have a complication. Some local hero playing savior. Robert Walker. Find out everything. I want to know who he is, what he wants, and how to break him. The voice on the other end asked a question. Because those children are worth $2 million to our clients, and I'm not losing that contract because some washed-up Marine has a conscience. The Suburban turned onto Route 54, maintaining its distance hunting. St. Mary's Regional Hospital rose out of the Texas landscape like a monument to suffering and salvation. White walls, too many windows, The smell of antiseptic and illness that hit you before you even walk through the doors. Bull parked his Harley in the emergency lot. Maggie pulled up behind him in her car. She'd closed the diner. Just put up a sign that said family emergency and followed. Some people were like that. They showed up. The emergency room waiting area was a study in fluorescent despair. Plastic chairs bolted to the floor. Magazines from 3 years ago. A television playing the news with the sound off. And people. So many people waiting for news that might change everything or might change nothing at all. Lily sat in one of the plastic chairs, Diane beside her. The girl's eyes were fixed on the double doors that led to the emergency treatment area. Not blinking, barely breathing, just watching and waiting. Bull approached slowly, sat down 2 chairs away, didn't speak. Maggie sat on Lily's other side, pulled a candy bar from her purse. "Honey, when did you last eat?" Lily didn't take her eyes off the doors. "Yesterday, maybe, I don't remember." "You should eat. You need your strength for when your brother wakes up." "What if he doesn't wake up?" The question hung in the air. Bull felt it like a physical weight. "He will," Bull said, surprised himself by speaking. "He's a fighter. Got this far, didn't he? That takes strength." Lily finally looked at him. Really looked at him for the first time since they'd met in that parking lot. "You don't know that. You don't know anything about us." "No, I don't. But I know fighters when I see them. And you too, you're fighters. Mom was a fighter too. She still died." Bull had no answer for that. What could you say to a 7-year-old who'd already learned that fighting wasn't always enough? Diane was on her phone speaking in low tones, calling the office, filing reports, setting in motion the machinery of the state that would decide these children's fates. An hour passed, then 2. The waiting room emptied and filled and emptied again. People came and went with their own crises, their own desperations. Bull didn't move. Neither did Lily. "Tell me about your mom," Bull said finally. Lily kept watching the doors. "Why? Because you've been carrying her around for 3 months. Might help to set her down for a minute." Long silence. Then quietly. "Her name was Isabella. She was 25. She had blonde hair like mine, but longer. She liked to sing. She wasn't very good at it, but she did it anyway." "What did she sing?" "Country songs mostly. Dolly Parton. She said Dolly understood what it was like to come from nothing and still dream big. Smart woman. She was. When she was clean, when she wasn't using, she was the best mom. She made us breakfast. She read me stories. She sang to Eli. She promised we'd be okay." Lily's voice cracked. "She promised?" Bull understood broken promises, lived with them every day. "Tell me what happened." "Her boyfriend came back. Thomas Reaper, people called him. He brought the stuff, the drugs. Mom tried to say no. I heard her. She said she was clean. She had kids. She couldn't. But he said just one time. Just to take the edge off, just to remember what it felt like." And she believed him. She wanted to believe him. That's different. Lily finally looked away from the doors, looked at Bull. She tried. For 4 months after Eli was born, she tried so hard. Got a job at a laundromat, went to meetings, stayed clean, but then Reaper came back and... She trailed off. "And you found her?" "In the bathroom. I thought she was sleeping at first. I didn't understand. I was at school, and when I came home, the door was open and she was just there, on the floor. I tried to wake her up. I shook her, but she wouldn't wake up." Bull felt something break inside him, some last defense against the world's pain. "What did you do?" "I called 911. They came, police, ambulance, all these people. They took Mom away. Then more people came. Social workers. They said we had to go with them, that we'd be taken care of. But I heard them talking. They said siblings get separated, that there aren't enough homes, that Eli was young enough to be placed easy, but I was harder. So you ran." "I grabbed Eli and I ran, took formula from the apartment, some diapers, Mom's emergency cash she kept in the freezer, and we just kept moving. For 3 months. For 3 months. Shelters wouldn't take us without calling CPS. Streets were dangerous, but at least we were together. I figured if I could just keep him safe until I was old enough, until I could get a job, then we'd be okay. We'd keep Mom's promise. We'd stay together. She looked back at the emergency room doors. But I couldn't keep him safe. I tried everything and I still failed. He got sick and I didn't know what to do, and now he might die and it's my fault. Kid. Bull waited until she looked at him. You kept a 6-month-old baby alive on the streets for 3 months. You found food, found shelter, kept him warm, kept him hidden. That's not failing, that's surviving. Your mom would be proud. How do you know? Because I am, and I don't even know you. The words surprised them both. Lily started to respond, but the emergency room doors swung open. A woman in scrubs emerged, dark hair pulled back, stethoscope around her neck, exhaustion etched into every line of her face. Family of Eli Brennan! Everyone stood at once. Dr. Sarah Patel looked at the assembled group. Her gaze settled on Diane, first the official guardian, then moved to Lily, then to Bull. Eli is stabilized, but he's not out of danger yet. Severe dehydration, borderline sepsis, malnutrition. His little body has been through trauma. We've got him on IV fluids, antibiotics, and we're monitoring his vitals closely. The next 72 hours are critical. Can I see him? Lily asked. Her voice was so small. Briefly, 5 minutes. He's not conscious yet, but studies show babies can sense when family is near. It might help. Diane started to speak, but Bull caught her eye, shook his head slightly. Not now. Don't take this from her. Diane closed her mouth, nodded at Dr. Patel. They walked down the corridor, Lily in the lead, practically running, through more doors, past nurses' stations, into the pediatric intensive care unit where machines beeped and hummed and kept fragile lives tethered to this world. Eli Brennan lay in a hospital bed that swallowed him. Tubes and wires ran from his tiny body to machines that blinked with numbers Bull couldn't interpret. An oxygen mask covered half his face. His skin was still too pale, but his chest rose and fell, the rhythm of life continuing despite everything trying to stop it. Lily pressed her hand against the glass that separated them. Hey, Eli, it's me, it's Lily. I'm here, okay? I'm right here. You're going to be fine. The doctors are taking care of you. You just need to rest. You just need to get strong, and then we'll figure everything out, I promise. Another promise. Bull wondered how many promises this kid had already made. How many she'd already broken through no fault of her own. Can I go in? Lily asked. Dr. Patel shook her head. Not yet. He needs to stay in isolation until we're sure about the infection. But you can talk to him through the glass. He can hear you. So Lily talked. About the diner, about Bull's motorcycle, about how scared she'd been but how everything was going to be okay now. About Mom and the songs she used to sing. About the apartment they used to live in with the window that looked out over the playground. She talked until her voice gave out, until Dr. Patel gently said it was time to let Eli rest. They walked back to the waiting room. Lily's hand found Bull's jacket again, holding on, anchoring herself. In the waiting room, Diane was off her phone for once. She looked at Bull with an expression he couldn't quite read. Mr. Walker, we need to talk. Yeah, we do. They moved to the corner. Maggie took Lily to get something from the vending machines, giving them space. What happens now? Bull asked. Now Lily goes to emergency foster placement tonight. Eli will remain here under state custody. When he's released, likely to a separate placement. You're going to split them up. Mr. Walker, that's not my first choice, but finding a foster home willing to take both a 7-year-old and a medically fragile infant. On short notice, that's not easy. What about family, grandparents, aunts, uncles? Mother had no family on record. Father is listed on Eli's birth certificate, but we haven't been able to locate him. The system is doing what it can, but the reality is these children will likely be separated, at least temporarily. Bo looked across the waiting room at Lily. She was pressing buttons on the vending machine, but her eyes kept drifting back to the hallway that led to Eli. What would it take? Diane frowned. I'm sorry. To keep them together. What would it take? Mr. Walker, are you asking about fostering? I'm asking what it takes. Diane pulled up her tablet, scrolled through screens. Background check, home inspection, income verification, parenting training, references, and honestly, with your record, she trailed off. With my record, I'm automatically disqualified. Not automatically, but you'd face significant scrutiny, Hell's Angels motorcycle club, multiple assault charges, weapons violations, conspiracy, even if charges were dropped or sentences served, the perception, I get it, I'm the bad guy. You're the unknown quantity, and we don't place vulnerable children with unknown quantities. She softened slightly. I appreciate what you did today, Mr. Walker. You saved that baby's life. But saving someone once doesn't qualify you to raise them. Bull nodded. She was right. He knew she was right. But then he looked at Lily again, saw her thin frame, her bare feet, the desperation in her eyes. And he thought about Catherine, about Emma, about promises made and promises broken and the weight of 22 years spent doing nothing while the world kept turning. How long the process? How long does it take? Months. And that's if everything goes smoothly. Background checks alone can take 6 weeks. Then there's training, home studies, psychological evaluations. And these kids have 72 hours before you decide where to send them. That's not in my control, but it is in mine. Diane looked at him, really looked at him. Mr. Walker, what exactly are you proposing? I'm proposing that I try, that I do whatever it takes to get approved, that I give these kids what they need most, each other. That's admirable. But nothing. You said the system doesn't place children with unknown quantities. Fine. Let me become a known quantity. Run your background checks. Do your home inspection. I'll take your training. Jump through whatever hoops you want. Just give me a chance. Diane was quiet for a long moment. Then she closed her tablet. Mr. Walker, I've worked in CPS for 20 years. I've seen a lot of people make promises about children. Most of them don't follow through. The ones who do often find it's harder than they thought. Are you prepared for that? No, but I'm prepared to try. While you don't even know these children. Bull looked down at his hands, scarred from years of violence and labor. Hands that had hurt people, hands that had failed the people they were supposed to protect. I don't have a good answer for that. Maybe it's guilt. Maybe it's the fact that I've got nothing better to do with the rest of my life. Or maybe it's because a 7-year-old kid kept her baby brother alive on the streets for 3 months. And if she can do that, I can at least try to help them have a better ending. Diane studied him, then nodded slowly. I'll tell you what. I'll authorize temporary placement with supervised visits. You'll have 72 hours to prove you're serious. Show me a clean home. Stable income, character references. If you can do that, we'll talk about the next steps. If you can't, the kids get separated. The kids get placed in the homes that are available, which, yes, will likely mean separation. Bull extended his hand. Diane shook it. Her grip was firm. Don't make me regret this, Mr. Walker. That's the plan, ma'am. Across the waiting room, Lily had given up on the vending machine. She was back in her chair, knees pulled up to her chest, looking impossibly small. Bull walked over, sat down beside her. Hey, kid. Hey, your brother's going to be okay. Doctor said so. Doctors lie sometimes. Mom's doctor told her she could beat it. The addiction. He lied. Yeah, sometimes they do. But Dr. Patel, she doesn't seem like the lying type. Lily was quiet. Then, what happens to us now? Bull took a breath. I talked to Ms. Reynolds. She says you can stay with me, temporarily, while Eli recovers and while we figure things out. Lily's head snapped up. Really? Really, but it's not forever. Not yet. I have to prove I can take care of you. That means getting my apartment in order, getting all the legal stuff done. Can you help me with that? You want me to help you? Yeah, you know what kids need better than I do. Plus, it's your home too. For now, anyway. Should have some say in it. For the first time since Bull had met her, Lily smiled. Small, tentative, but real. Okay, I can help. Then let's go home. They stood. Maggie was waiting by the exit with a bag of supplies she'd somehow acquired. Clothes for Lily, toiletries, a stuffed bear for Eli when he woke up. You're a good man, Bull Walker, Maggie said. Don't know about that. I do. They walked out of the hospital into the afternoon heat. Bull's Harley waited in the parking lot. Lily looked at it with something like reverence. "I've never been on a motorcycle. First time for everything." He helped her climb on behind him, showed her where to put her feet, gave her his spare helmet, too big but better than nothing. "Hold on to my jacket. Don't let go." "I won't." The Harley's engine roared to life. Lily's arms wrapped around Bull's waist, small and thin and holding on like he was the only solid thing in a world that had taught her nothing was solid. Bull kicked the bike into gear and pulled out of the parking lot. In his mirrors, he saw Diane watching from the hospital entrance, saw Maggie waving, and saw far in the back of the lot a black Suburban with tinted windows. It pulled out behind them, maintaining distance, following. Bull memorized the make and model. Combat instincts never died. Identify the threat, track its movement, never let it approach unseen, but he didn't tell Lily. She'd been scared enough for one day. They rode through El Paso as the sun began its descent, past strip malls and apartment complexes, past the elementary school Lily used to attend, past the playground where she and Eli used to swing before everything fell apart. Bull's apartment was on the second floor of a complex that had seen better days. Cracked parking lot, faded paint. But it was clean and quiet, and the neighbors minded their own business. He parked the Harley, helped Lily off, led her up the stairs. "It's not much," he said, unlocking the door, "but it's safe." Lily stepped inside and stopped, looked around at the Spartan space, the military-precise organization, the complete absence of anything personal or warm or homelike. "You really don't have kid stuff," she said. "Never needed it before. You need it now." Bull looked at his apartment through her eyes, saw how cold it was, how empty, how it looked exactly like what it was, the refuge of a man who'd given up on living and settled for surviving. "Yeah," he said quietly. "I guess I do." His phone buzzed, text from a number he hadn't heard from in 5 years. Terry Morrison, Tank, his old riding buddy from the Hells Angels. "Heard you're playing hero with some street kids. Need help, call me." Bull stared at the message. 5 years of silence, and now this. Word traveled fast in the old community. People still watched out for each other even after you'd left the life behind. He put the phone away, looked at Lily, who was exploring the apartment with careful curiosity, opening cabinets, checking closets, making sure there were no hidden dangers, still in survival mode. Maybe always would be. "Hey, kid, you like pizza?" Lily turned. "Yeah." "Good, because I don't know how to cook anything else." She laughed, a small sound but genuine, the first laugh he'd heard from her. Bull pulled out his phone again, ordered pizza, then sent a reply to Terry. "Yeah, I need help. Tomorrow. Bring the guys." 3 dots appeared. Then, "We'll be there." Bull looked around his apartment, at the work ahead, at the mountain he'd decided to climb, at this small, damaged girl who'd trusted him with her brother's life and her own future, at the photographs still in his wallet, Catherine and Emma, the family he'd failed. "Not this time," he said quietly. "This time I keep the promise." Outside, the black Suburban sat in the parking lot, engine running, watching, waiting. The war for Lily and Eli's future had just begun. The apartment was dark when Bull woke at 05:30. Same internal clock that 22 years in the Marines had hardwired into his brain. But everything else was different. There was a child sleeping on his couch. Lily had curled into a ball under the blanket Maggie had brought, her thin frame barely making a dent in the cushions. She'd refused the bedroom, insisted on staying where she could see the door. Bull understood. When the world taught you that safety was an illusion, you learned to sleep light and keep your exits visible. He moved quietly through the apartment, starting the coffee maker, checking the windows. Perimeter check, threat assessment. But now he wasn't just protecting himself. Now there was someone else to keep safe. His phone showed 12 missed calls, all from the same number, Terry Morrison. Bull stepped onto the small balcony, closing the door behind him so he wouldn't wake Lily. The El Paso morning was already warming up, the sun just beginning to paint the sky in shades of orange and red. He dialed Terry back. "About damn time." Terry's voice was gravel and cigarettes. "You got any idea what kind of shitstorm you just walked into?" "Good morning to you too, Tank." "Don't good morning me. Words out, Bull. Streets talking. You took in some kids connected to Reaper Brennan. That's complicated." Bull felt his jaw tighten. "How complicated?" "Reaper's trouble, always has been, but now he's got new friends, expensive friends. Someone's backing his play for custody, and it ain't because they care about his kids." "What do you know?" "I know Reaper showed up at Jackson's bar last night, drunk and flashing cash. 50 grand in a duffel bag, said he was getting his kids back, said some rich bastard was paying him to do it, said he was going to be set for life." Bull's hand tightened on the phone. "Did he say who?" "Nah, but Bull, 50 grand, that's not child support money, that's something else. Something wrong." "Yeah." Silence on the line. Then Terry spoke again, quieter. "You need help, real help. This ain't a fight you can handle alone." "I'm handling it." "Like hell you are. You got no income, no place for kids, no legal standing, and you're going up against someone with enough money to throw 50 grand at a junkie just to make you go away. You need backup, brother." Bull looked through the glass door at Lily, still sleeping. So small, so vulnerable. "What are you thinking?" "I'm thinking the old crew rallies, we get your place fixed up, get you set up proper, show CPS you're serious, show whoever's pulling Reaper's strings that you don't back down. Terry, I left the life, I'm not dragging you back into, too late, we're already in. Big Mike's got his construction company, Chains runs electrical, Spider's got painting. We can have your place kid ready in 48 hours, free of charge." "I can't." "Yeah, you can. We take care of our own, Bull. Always have. That don't stop just because you went straight. If anything, it matters more now." Bull felt something in his chest loosen, something that had been tight for 15 years. "I appreciate it. Don't thank me yet. There's more. You're going to need a lawyer, a good one. I know someone. Grace Holloway. She specializes in redemption cases, former gang members trying to go straight. She's tough as nails and she doesn't lose." "How much?" "For you, she'll work something out. I already called her. She's expecting you at 9. Bull checked his watch. 3 hours. "Okay." "Bull." Terry's voice went serious. "This thing you're doing, it's good, but it's going to get ugly. Whoever's bankrolling Reaper, they're not going to back off just because you've got heart. You understand?" "Yeah, I understand." "Good. We'll be at your place at noon. Have the kids somewhere else. Some of the guys can look rough. Don't want to scare her." "Copy that." Bull hung up and stood on the balcony watching the sun climb. Below in the parking lot, the black Suburban was still there. Same spot as last night. Bull memorized the position, the angle, the sight lines. Whoever was in that vehicle wanted him to know they were watching. Message received. Inside, Lily was awake. She sat on the couch, blanket wrapped around her shoulders, looking lost in the gray light of morning. "Hey, kid, you sleep okay?" "I slept. Not the same as sleeping okay." Bull understood the difference. "You hungry?" "Yeah." Bull moved to the kitchen, opened the refrigerator, closed it, opened a cabinet, closed it. The reality of his situation crystallized in that moment. He had coffee, beer, some crackers from 3 months ago. That was it. "How do you feel about breakfast at the diner?" Lily brightened slightly. "Maggie's place." "Yeah. Okay." They rode the Harley through empty morning streets. Lily held on tighter this time, more confident, learning to trust the machine, learning to trust him. The diner was already open. Maggie saw them through the window and had coffee and hot chocolate ready before they sat down. "How'd the first night go?" she asked. "We survived," Bull said. "That's a start." Maggie turned to Lily. "What can I get you, honey?" "Pancakes. Pancakes it is. And bacon. And eggs. You need fuel." Lily smiled. That small, tentative smile that made Bull's chest hurt. They ate in comfortable silence. The diner filled up with the morning crowd, familiar faces. Harold and June in their corner booth, the trucker who'd helped yesterday. People Bull had seen every day for 5 years but never really talked to. This morning they nodded, offered quiet words of support. "Good thing you're doing." That kid's lucky to have you. Let us know if you need anything. Bull realized something. He'd spent 15 years thinking he was alone. Turned out he'd just been lonely. There was a difference. At 8:30, Bull's phone buzzed. Text from an unknown number. Mr. Walker, this is Grace Holloway. Terry gave me your number. I have a 9 a.m. slot open. My office is at 412 Mesa Street. Don't be late. We have work to do. Bull showed the text to Maggie. Can Lily stay with you for a few hours? Of course, we'll be fine, won't we, honey? Lily looked uncertain but nodded. You're coming back, right? The question hit Bull harder than it should have. How many times had someone promised this kid they'd come back and then disappeared? Yeah, I'm coming back. Count on it. Okay. Bull rode the Harley across town to Mesa Street. Grace Holloway's office was in a converted house brick facade with a hand-painted sign. Professional but not corporate. The kind of place that said, I care about results, not appearances. He parked and walked inside. The waiting room was small walls covered with photos. Former clients, Bull realized. Men and women in graduation gowns, family portraits. People who'd turned their lives around. Mr. Walker? Bull turned. Grace Holloway was 45, blonde hair pulled back in a tight bun, wearing a gray suit that was professional without being stuffy. But it was her eyes that caught his attention. Sharp, assessing, missing nothing. Ma'am, come in. We don't have much time. Her office was organized chaos. Files stacked on every surface. A whiteboard covered in case notes, 2 computers running simultaneously. Grace gestured to a chair and sat behind her desk. Terry told me about your situation. Former Hells Angels, decorated Marine, found 2 homeless kids and now you want to keep them. That about sum it up. Yeah. Let me be blunt, Mr. Walker. Your situation is difficult, bordering on impossible. You have a criminal record, no family experience, limited income. And you're going up against a biological father who, despite being a complete disaster, has legal standing. Bull nodded. He'd expected this. However, Grace pulled out a thick file. You also have something most of my clients don't. A legitimate military record that shows character and sacrifice. Terry sent me your service jacket. Marine Corps, 3 combat tours, Purple Heart, Bronze Star with Valor. She pulled out a faded document. Bull recognized it immediately, his commendation letter from Operation Desert Storm. Grace read aloud. Sergeant Robert Walker demonstrated exceptional courage under fire. On February 24, 1991, during the ground offensive in Iraq, Sergeant Walker entered a burning civilian structure to rescue trapped civilians. Despite severe burns to his hands and smoke inhalation, he made 3 separate entries, saving 7 civilians, including 3 children. She looked up. Is this accurate? Yes, ma'am. You saved 3 children from a burning building in Iraq. Yes, ma'am. Grace leaned back. And now you want to save 2 more. Bull didn't answer. Didn't need to. Here's what we're going to do, Grace said, pulling out a legal pad. We're going to present you as exactly what you are. A decorated veteran with a proven track record of protecting children. A man who made mistakes in his past but has been clean for 2 decades. A man who showed up when these kids needed someone. Will that be enough? I don't know. But it's the truth, and truth is the best weapon we have. Now let's talk about Reaper Brennan. Bull told her what Terry had said. The $50,000, the mysterious benefactor. Grace's expression darkened. That's what I was afraid of. Someone's paying Reaper to claim these kids. That means this isn't about family, it's about something else. Like what? I don't know yet, but $50,000 suggests trafficking, adoption fraud, something lucrative enough to justify that kind of investment. She made notes. I'll file emergency motions today, request an investigation into Reaper's sudden wealth, question the legitimacy of his custody claim, buy us time. How much time? 72 hours, maybe less. There's a hearing scheduled for Friday morning. That's when the judge will make a preliminary custody determination. We need to be ready. Grace pulled out a checklist. Here's what I need from you by Friday. Character references from at least 5 people. Proof of stable income. Proof of suitable housing. Completion of emergency parenting certification. And Mr. Walker? Yeah. Don't screw this up. These kids have been through enough. If you're not serious, tell me now. Bull thought about Lily's question. You're coming back, right? I'm serious, he said. Good. Then let's get to work. Bull left Grace's office with a folder full of forms and a head full of requirements. 72 hours to prove he could be a father, 72 hours to become someone worthy of keeping a promise. He rode back to the diner. Lily was helping Maggie bus tables, looking more relaxed than he'd seen her. Purpose was good medicine. How'd it go? Maggie asked. Got a lot of work to do. Then it's good Terry called in the troops. What? Maggie pointed out the window. Bull turned. Terry's truck was pulling into his apartment complex. Behind it, 3 more trucks. Big Mike's construction van, Chain's electrical truck, Spider's painting van, the old crew showing up, having his back. They're early, Bull said. They're eager. Good men don't get many chances to do something right. Let them help. Bull nodded, looked at Lily. Want to see something interesting? They rode back to the apartment together. The parking lot was full of trucks. Men were unloading equipment, tarps, paint cans, tools. They stopped when Bull pulled up. Terry stepped forward, still built like a tank despite being 62. Gray beard, hands scarred from 40 years of hard labor, eyes that had seen everything and judged nothing. Bull. Tank. They clasped hands. Then Terry pulled him into a rough hug. Good to see you, brother, even if you are making stupid decisions. Seems to be my specialty. Terry looked at Lily, softened his expression, got down on one knee so they were eye level. You must be Lily. I'm Terry. Me and your friend Bull here go way back. We're going to help fix up his place, make it nice for you and your brother. That okay with you? Lily looked at Bull. Bull nodded. She turned back to Terry. Okay. Good. Now we're going to make some noise, lots of drilling and hammering. You might want to hang out somewhere else for a few hours. Bull caught the suggestion. Terry was right. Some of these guys looked rough. Tattoos, scars, the kind of men who made kids nervous even when they were trying to help. Maggie's expecting us back at the diner, Bull said to Lily. Let's let these guys work. They returned to the diner. Lily settled into a booth with crayons and paper Maggie provided. Bull sat at the counter working through Grace's checklist, character references. He pulled out his phone. Started typing messages to people he barely knew but who'd shown up when it mattered. Maggie Sullivan. Would you write a character reference for me, Harold and June from the diner? Would you testify to my character in court, his supervisor at the VA, where he did part-time maintenance work? Would you confirm my employment? One by one, the responses came back. Yes, of course, anything you need. Bull stared at his phone. 15 years of keeping everyone at arm's length and they were still willing to vouch for him. Maybe he hadn't been as alone as he thought. His phone rang. Unknown number. Bull answered. Mr. Walker, this is Deputy Wade Carter. We need to talk in person. How soon can you get to the station? Bull's gut tightened. What's this about a Reaper Brennan? He filed his custody petition this morning. There are some things you need to know. I'll be there in 20. Bull told Maggie he had to go. She waved him off. Lily and I are fine. We're making a list of things she'll need. Clothes, school supplies, toys for her brother. Go do what you need to do. The El Paso County Sheriff's Station was a low-slung building that radiated authority and bureaucracy. Bull parked and walked inside. Deputy Carter was waiting in a conference room. Thanks for coming, Carter said. Sit down. Bull sat. Carter placed a file on the table. Reaper Brennan came in this morning with his lawyer, Raymond Stokes, high-end defense attorney, charges $500 an hour. You know how much Reaper makes? Nothing. Exactly. He's been unemployed for 3 years, 2 drug convictions, 1 domestic violence charge. He's got no money, no job, no stable housing, but somehow he's got Raymond Stokes representing him. Someone's backing him. That's what I think. So I did some digging. Carter opened the file. 3 days ago, $50,000 was deposited into Reaper's account. came from a shell corporation registered in the Cayman Islands. That shell corporation is owned by another shell corporation, and that one is owned by Victor Hale Enterprises. Bull leaned forward. Who's Victor Hale? Real estate developer, billionaire, multiple properties across Texas and Arizona. But here's where it gets interesting. The FBI has been investigating Hale for 2 years. International adoption fraud, human trafficking, selling children to wealthy buyers overseas. Bull felt ice in his veins. He wants to sell Lily and Eli. That's our working theory. Healthy American children with no family ties are worth a lot of money to the right buyers. $2 million according to our sources. Jesus Christ. Yeah, Carter leaned back. Problem is we can't prove it, not yet. Hale's good at covering his tracks. The shell corporations, the offshore accounts, everything's technically legal. We need time to build a case. I've got 72 hours before the hearing. I know. That's why I called you. Bull, if Hale gets those kids, we might never find them again. You understand what I'm saying? Bull understood. This wasn't just about custody, it was about survival. What do you need me to do? Keep fighting. Keep those kids safe. Give us time to nail Hale and watch your back. Men like him don't like complications. You're a complication. Noted. Bull stood to leave. Carter called after him. Bull, for what it's worth, I think you're doing the right thing. Those kids need someone like you. Someone like me has a record. Someone like you showed up. That's what matters. Bull rode back toward the diner, his mind racing. Victor Hale. Human trafficking. $2 million. This was bigger than he'd thought. Bigger than he was equipped to handle. But he'd handle it anyway. He pulled into a gas station to fill up. While the tank filled, he noticed the black Suburban parked across the street. Same one from yesterday. Same tinted windows. Bull finished filling up, walked directly toward the Suburban. The vehicle's engine started. It began to pull away. Bull stepped in front of it, stood in the street, didn't move. The Suburban stopped. Idled. The driver's window lowered slightly. Bull couldn't see the face, but he could see the camera. Someone was filming him. Tell your boss I'm not going anywhere, Bull said, loud enough to be heard, clear enough to be understood. The window rolled up. The Suburban pulled around him and drove away. Bull memorized the partial license plate. Called Deputy Carter. Left a message with the information. Then he went back to the diner. Lily was at a booth surrounded by bags. Maggie had taken her shopping. New clothes, new shoes, supplies for the apartment. Things that would make a space feel like a home. We got a little carried away, Maggie admitted. Bull looked at the bags, at Lily's face. She was smiling. Perfect, he said. They loaded everything into Maggie's car. Bull rode the Harley back to his apartment. The parking lot was still full of trucks, but the work had moved inside. Bull walked up the stairs and opened his door. He stopped, stared. The apartment had been transformed. The spare room, which had been filled with motorcycle parts and old gear, was now a child's bedroom. Freshly painted in soft yellow. A real bed with a mattress. A crib in the corner for Eli. Shelves on the walls. Curtains on the windows. It looked like a place where children could sleep safely. The living room had been rearranged. New furniture, a TV that actually worked, pictures on the walls, landscapes and animals that Maggie must have provided. The kitchen was stocked, food in the cabinets, dishes in the cupboards. Terry emerged from the bedroom, dust on his shoulders. What do you think? Bull couldn't speak. We're not done yet, Terry continued. Still need to install the safety locks, outlet covers, window guards, but the basics are there. Chains is running new electrical for the smoke detectors, Spider's doing touch-ups on the paint, Big Mike's reinforcing the balcony railing, should be finished by tonight. Terry, I can't. Yeah, you can. We're brothers, Bull. That don't stop just because you stopped riding. You need help, we help. That's how it works. Bull looked around at the men working. Big Mike securing the balcony, Chains running wire through the walls, Spider perfecting the paint job. Men who'd once been his brothers in chaos, now his brothers in redemption. Thank you, Bull said. Meant it. Don't thank us yet. Still got a fight ahead. Terry pulled Bull aside, lowered his voice. Heard about Victor Hale. Heard what he's planning. Yeah. That's bad business, Bull. Trafficking, kids. Men like Hale don't back down easy. He's going to come at you hard. Let him. That's what I wanted to hear. Terry grinned. Dangerous and real. You need backup, you call. Doesn't matter what time, doesn't matter what you need, you understand? Yeah. Good. Now let's finish this place up. Those kids deserve a real home. By sunset, the work was done. The apartment looked like a place where a family could live. Safe, warm, ready. Bull stood in the middle of it all, looking at what his brothers had built in a single day. Looking at the possibility of redemption made real, Maggie brought Lily back. The girl walked through the door and stopped. Her mouth opened. She turned in a slow circle, taking it all in. This is for us. Yay, Bull said. The room with the bed. Yay. And the crib for Eli. Yay. Lily walked to the bedroom, touched the walls, sat on the bed, looked out the window at the El Paso sunset. I've never had my own room before, she said quietly. Bull stood in the doorway. Well, now you do, for as long as you need it. Lily turned to face him. Her eyes were wet. Thank you. Don't thank me yet, kid. Still got a fight ahead. I know, but still, thank you. That night, after Lily was asleep in her new bed, Bull sat on the balcony. The old crew had left. Maggie had gone home. The apartment was quiet except for the soft sound of a child breathing in the next room. Bull pulled out his wallet, unfolded the photograph he'd carried for 22 years. Catherine and Emma, his wife and daughter, lost in 2003 to a drunk driver while he was deployed in Afghanistan. He'd come home to an empty house and a hole in his chest that never healed. I'm sorry, he whispered to the photograph. I'm sorry I wasn't there. I'm sorry I couldn't protect you. But maybe I can protect them. Maybe that counts for something. His phone buzzed. Text from an unknown number. Last warning, Mr. Walker. Drop the custody petition. Leave the children to their father. If you don't, the girl will have an accident. We know where she sleeps. Below the text was a photograph, taken through his apartment window. Lily in her new bed, asleep, vulnerable. Bull's hands shook, not from fear, from rage. He walked inside, checked on Lily. She was still asleep, safe for now. Then he went to his bedroom closet, pulled out a lockbox from the top shelf, opened it. Inside was his service pistol, cleaned and maintained. He'd told himself he'd never need it again. Told himself those days were over. He'd been wrong. Bull loaded the pistol, chambered around, sat in the living room darkness with the gun in his lap and his eyes on the door. If they wanted to threaten a child under his protection, they'd find out exactly what a Marine with nothing to lose could do. Outside, the black Suburban sat in the parking lot, watching, waiting. The next 48 hours would determine everything. Bull didn't sleep. He watched. He waited. He protected. Because that's what you did when you made a promise you intended to keep. Friday morning arrived with the weight of finality. Bull stood at his window at 05:30, coffee going cold in his hands, watching the sun rise over El Paso. In 3 hours, Judge Margaret Harrison would decide whether Lily and Eli stayed with him or went into the system, whether they stayed together or got torn apart. Behind him, Lily was already awake. She sat on the couch in the dress Maggie had bought, her hands folded in her lap, staring at nothing. You scared? Bull asked without turning around. Terrified. Me too. She looked up at him, surprised. Really? Yeah. Being brave doesn't mean you're not scared. It means you do the right thing anyway. Lily stood and walked to the window beside him. They watched the sunrise together in silence. Two people who'd learned the hard way that promises were fragile things, easily broken, hard to keep. My mom used to say that, Lily said quietly, about being brave. Bull looked down at her. She sounds like she was smart. She was, when she wasn't using. When she was clean, she was the best mom. Lily's voice cracked. I wish you could have met her. Me too, kid. Bull's phone buzzed. Grace Holloway. Courthouse. 8 a.m. sharp. Don't be late. We need to prep. They arrived at the courthouse at 7:45. The building loomed like a monument to judgment, all stone and glass and the weight of decisions that changed lives. Grace met them at the entrance wearing a navy suit and carrying a briefcase that looked like it weighed 50 pounds. "Conference room," she said. "Now." They followed her through security down corridors that smelled of floor polish and stress into a small room with a table and hard chairs. Grace spread files across the table like a general planning a campaign. "Here's what we have," she said. "Character references from 12 people, including a VFW post commander, your former supervisor at the VA, Maggie Sullivan Harold, and June Reeves. Your apartment passed CPS inspection with flying colors. You completed emergency parenting certification. Your employment is verified. Your background check came back clean for the past 20 years. So we're good. We're adequate, but adequate might not be enough. Reaper Brennan is the biological father. That carries weight. And his lawyer Raymond Stokes is good. He'll paint you as a violent criminal with no parenting experience. He'll argue that blood matters more than circumstances. What do we argue? We argue the truth, that you saved these children's lives, that you've demonstrated commitment and capability, that separating them would cause irreparable harm." Grace paused. "And we have one more card to play." She pulled out her laptop, turned it around. On the screen was a video call interface. An elderly man appeared, pale and frail, oxygen tubes visible, lying in a hospital bed. "Mr. Walker," the man said, his voice weak but clear. "It's been a long time." Bull's breath caught. "Colonel Mitchell, I heard about your situation. Heard you're trying to save some kids. Thought I'd help if I can." Grace leaned forward. "Colonel Mitchell has agreed to testify on your behalf. He's in hospice care in Virginia, stage 4 lung cancer. The doctors give him 2 weeks. He wanted to spend one of them helping you." Bull's throat tightened. "Sir, you don't have to. Son, I've got 2 weeks left to do something that matters. Let me do this." The screen went dark. Grace closed the laptop. "He'll testify via video conference during the hearing. His statement carries weight. Combat commander, decorated officer, his word means something." "It won't be enough," Bull said quietly. "Maybe not, but it's what we have." Grace looked at Lily. "Honey, you'll be in the courtroom, but you won't testify unless the judge asks you questions directly. Just sit with Maggie and be quiet, okay?" Lily nodded. "Good. Bull, one more thing." Grace's expression hardened. "Reaper Brennan is going to try to get under your skin. He'll say things, ugly things. You need to keep your cool. No matter what he says, you stay calm. You react with violence, we lose. Understand?" "I understand." "I hope so, because everything depends on the next 2 hours." The courtroom was already half full when they entered. Community members who'd come to support Bull. Terry and the old crew in the back row, cleaned up and wearing suits. Maggie with Harold and June. Even Deputy Carter in uniform sitting in the gallery. And on the other side, Reaper Brennan. Bull hadn't seen him in person before. The man was 32 but looked 50. Gaunt face, twitchy hands, eyes that darted everywhere and focused nowhere. He wore a cheap suit that didn't fit right and kept scratching at his arms like his skin was crawling. Next to him sat Raymond Stokes. 50 years old, expensive suit, silver hair, perfectly styled. The kind of lawyer who charged by the minute and won by attrition. And in the back corner, partially obscured but unmistakable, sat a man in a tailored suit. Silver hair, cold eyes, Victor Hale, the puppet master. Come to watch his investment play out. Bull caught Hale's eye. The man smiled. Predatory. Confident. Bull didn't look away. "All rise." Judge Margaret Harrison entered. 62 years old, gray hair pulled back tight, wearing robes that somehow made her look both severe and fair. She took her seat, adjusted her glasses, and surveyed the courtroom. "This is an emergency custody hearing for Lily Brennan, age 7, and Eli Brennan, age 6 months, currently hospitalized at St. Mary's Regional. Mr. Thomas Brennan has filed for custody as biological father. Mr. Robert Walker has filed for emergency foster placement with intent to adopt. Let's proceed." Raymond Stokes stood, smooth, confident. Your Honor, this case is straightforward. Mr. Brennan is the biological father of both children. He has legal standing and parental rights. Mr. Walker is a stranger with a violent criminal history. The law is clear on this matter. Stokes pulled out a file. Mr. Walker's record includes 14 years with the Hells Angels motorcycle gang. Multiple assault charges, weapons violations, conspiracy. While charges were dropped or sentences served, the pattern of violence is undeniable. This is not a man who should be entrusted with vulnerable children. Bull felt Lily's eyes on him from the gallery, felt the weight of every mistake he'd ever made. Grace stood. Your Honor, Mr. Walker's record is old, 20 years old. For 2 decades he has lived a clean, productive life. He served his country with distinction. 3 combat tours, Purple Heart, Bronze Star with valor for rescuing civilians, including children from a burning building in Iraq. She placed documents on the evidence table. These are character references from 12 community members, including veterans, business owners, and law enforcement. This is verification of stable employment and suitable housing. This is completion of emergency parenting certification. Mr. Walker has done everything the state requires and more. Judge Harrison reviewed the documents. What about Mr. Brennan's qualifications? Stokes smiled. Mr. Brennan has struggled with addiction. He admits that. But he's clean now. 2 weeks sober. He's enrolled in a recovery program. He's committed to being the father his children deserve. 2 weeks, Grace said sharply. 2 weeks sober after years of drug abuse. Your Honor, where was Mr. Brennan when his children were homeless for 3 months? Where was he? When his infant son nearly died of dehydration, he wasn't there because he was using, because he abandoned them. My client was dealing with his own illness, Stokes countered. Addiction is a disease. He's seeking treatment. That shows commitment. Judge Harrison held up a hand. I'd like to hear from CPS, Ms. Reynolds. Diane stood from the state's table. Your Honor, this is a difficult case. Both men have significant concerns. Mr. Brennan's addiction history is troubling. His sudden wealth is suspicious, but Mr. Walker's criminal history cannot be ignored. She paused. However, in my 20 years with CPS, I've learned that what matters most is who shows up. For the past 72 hours, Mr. Walker has shown up. He's transformed his home, completed training, secured employment, visited Eli in the hospital daily. He's demonstrated commitment that most foster parents don't show in months. Your recommendation? The judge asked. Temporary guardianship to Mr. Walker pending full evaluation. Keep the children together. Give them stability while we investigate Mr. Brennan's circumstances. Stokes stood quickly. Your Honor, I object. Mr. Brennan has rights as biological father. Mr. Stokes, I haven't made a ruling yet. Judge Harrison's voice was steel. Sit down. Stokes sat. The judge turned to Grace. Counselor, you mentioned additional witnesses. Yes, Your Honor. I'd like to call Colonel James Mitchell via video conference. The bailiff set up the screen. Colonel Mitchell's face appeared pale and drawn, but eyes still sharp. The courtroom fell silent. Colonel Mitchell, Judge Harrison said gently, I understand you're calling from hospice care. Yes, Your Honor. Stage 4 lung cancer. Not much time left. Wanted to spend some of it helping Bull Walker. Tell me about Sergeant Walker. Mitchell's voice was weak but steady. I commanded Robert Walker during Operation Desert Storm. He was the finest Marine I ever served with. February 1991 ground offensive in Iraq. Civilian building caught fire. 7 people trapped inside, including 3 children. Bull ran in 3 times. Didn't wait for orders. Didn't think about himself. Just acted. Saved all 7. The colonel coughed, continued. He took severe burns to his hands. Smoke inhalation. Should have been evacuated. Refused to leave until everyone was safe. That's his nature, Your Honor, protector, guardian, hero. That was 30 years ago, Stokes interjected. What about his criminal activity with the Hells Angels? Mitchell's eyes hardened. What about it? Man came home from war with PTSD. VA failed him. System failed him. He made bad choices trying to survive. But the man who saved those children in Iraq, that man's still in there. I'm staking my last days on it. The courtroom was silent. Judge Harrison removed her glasses, wiped them, put them back on. Colonel, I understand you're dying. 2 weeks, they tell me. And you chose to spend time on this testimony. Yes, ma'am, because Bull Walker is a good man who made mistakes. These kids need a good man more than they need a perfect one. Give him this chance, Your Honor. Let my legacy be saving the man who saved so many. The screen went dark. Judge Harrison sat quietly for a long moment. Then she looked at Bull. Mr. Walker, I'd like to hear from you directly. Why do you want these children? Bull stood, every eye in the courtroom on him. He'd faced enemy fire, faced death, but this was harder. Your Honor, I don't have a good answer. By every measure, I'm wrong for this. I'm old, I've got no experience. I've made terrible mistakes. He pulled out his wallet, unfolded the photograph he'd carried for 22 years, placed it on the evidence table. That's my wife, Catherine, and my daughter, Emma. Emma was 6 months old in that picture, same age as Eli. His voice cracked, but he pushed through. I was deployed to Afghanistan in 2003. Catherine and Emma were killed by a drunk driver while I was gone. I came home to an empty house and 2 coffins. I wasn't there to protect them. That failure has haunted me for 22 years. The courtroom was absolutely silent. I've spent 2 decades telling myself I'd never promise to protect someone again, never put myself in position to fail someone who depended on me. Then Lily shouted at me in a parking lot and I had a choice. Walk away like I've been doing for 22 years or stand up. Bull looked at Lily in the gallery. I'm not perfect, I'm not even good, but I'm here, I showed up. And I'll keep showing up every single day these kids need me. I failed my family once. I'm asking for a chance to not fail another. Judge Harrison studied him for a long moment. Mr. Walker, the measure of a man isn't his worst moment, it's what he does after. She turned to Stokes. Mr. Stokes, I have concerns about your client's sudden wealth. Where did Mr. Brennan acquire $50,000? Stokes stood smoothly. A friend helped him, Your Honor, a benefactor who believes in second chances. Name this benefactor. I'm not at liberty to... Then I'm not at liberty to ignore it. Judge Harrison's voice sharpened. Counselor, I've been on this bench 18 years. I know when something smells wrong. Your client is unemployed, recently using drugs, and suddenly has enough money to hire you. That raises questions. Grace stood. Your Honor, I'd like to enter evidence. Financial records showing $50,000 deposited into Mr. Brennan's account 3 days ago. The money came from a shell corporation registered to Victor Hale Enterprises. The courtroom erupted. Stokes was on his feet. Your Honor, this is speculation. It's public record, Grace said calmly. Victor Hale is currently under FBI investigation for international adoption fraud and human trafficking. The FBI believes Mr. Brennan was paid to claim these children for trafficking purposes. Judge Harrison's face went hard. Bailiff, is there an FBI agent present? Deputy Carter stood. Your Honor, I'm not FBI, but I've been coordinating with them. We have evidence linking Victor Hale to adoption trafficking. We believe he intended to purchase these children through fraudulent custody transfer. Your Honor. Stokes was sweating now. These are unproven allegations. Sit down, Mr. Stokes. The judge turned to the bailiff. Is Victor Hale in this courtroom? All eyes turned to the back corner. The seat was empty. During the chaos, Hale had slipped out. Deputy Carter cursed under his breath. He left during the commotion. By the time we realized he was already out of the building. We've got units searching, but he's got a head start, Bull finished grimly. Judge Harrison's expression was ice. Bailiff, issue a warrant for Victor Hale's detention. Deputy Carter, coordinate with FBI. She looked at Reaper Brennan. Mr. Brennan, did Victor Hale pay you to claim these children? Reaper's face was pale, twitchy. He looked at Stokes, at the empty seat where Hale had been, at the courtroom full of people watching him. I want immunity, he said quietly. Excuse me, I want immunity. I'll testify against Hale. Tell you everything, but I want immunity. Stokes grabbed his arm. Don't say another word. Reaper shook him off. He paid me 50 grand, said I'd get another 50 when the kids were transferred. Said they were going to wealthy families overseas, better lives. I didn't know it was trafficking. I swear I didn't know. You didn't care, Grace said coldly. No, Reaper admitted. I didn't. I needed the money, needed the drugs. I'm a piece of shit, I know that. But these kids, they deserve better than me. Better than Hale, they deserve him. He pointed at Bull. At least he gives a damn. Judge Harrison sat back. The courtroom was chaos. Reporters scribbling notes. People whispering. Stokes arguing with his client. Order, the judge said quietly. The room fell silent. This hearing is suspended. Mr. Brennan's custody petition is dismissed pending criminal investigation. Federal custody will be retained until the FBI completes their investigation of Victor Hale. Bull's heart sank. Federal custody meant the kids would still be taken. But Judge Harrison wasn't finished. However, I'm not granting custody today, Mr. Walker. Bull felt the floor drop out. I'm granting emergency guardianship effective immediately. You'll have 90 days to complete full foster certification. During that time, Lily and Eli Brennan will reside in your care under CPS supervision. Wait, that was... If at the end of 90 days you've met all requirements and the children are thriving, I'll grant permanent custody with a path to adoption. But Mr. Walker, don't make me regret this. Those children deserve stability. Can you provide that? Bull stood. Yes, Your Honor, I can. I will. The gavel struck. The courtroom erupted, Terry and the old crew cheering, Maggie crying, Lily running to Bull, crashing into him, wrapping her arms around his waist. We can stay together, she asked. Yeah, kid, we can stay together. Bull felt something crack inside his chest, something that had been frozen for 8,030 days. The corners of his mouth moved. Unfamiliar muscles remembering an old pattern, and for the first time since he'd buried Catherine and Emma, Bull Walker smiled. It wasn't a big smile, wasn't Hollywood perfect, but it was real. Lily felt it and looked up. Her own face broke into the widest grin he'd ever seen. You smiled, she whispered. You actually smiled. Yeah, Bull said, surprised by the sound of his own laughter. I guess I did. Outside the courthouse, the celebration spilled onto the steps. Community members congratulating, reporters asking questions, Grace shaking hands and promising interviews. Bull stood apart with Lily watching the chaos. That's when he saw it. The black Suburban, still there, still watching. As Bull watched, the vehicle's back window lowered slightly. Victor Hale's face appeared, smiling, confident, unbothered by the warrant or the testimony or any of it. He raised a phone, took a picture of Bull and Lily standing together, then the window rolled up and the Suburban pulled away. Deputy Carter appeared at Bull's elbow. We're tracking him. FBI's got units moving in. We'll get him. When? Soon. Soon isn't now. And that man just took a picture of a 7-year-old girl. Carter's face hardened. I know. Stay alert. Keep the kids close. We're doing everything we can. That night, Bull couldn't sleep. He sat in the living room with his service pistol in his lap, watching the door. Lily was asleep in her room. Eli was still in the hospital, but stable, improving every day. They were so close to being safe, but close wasn't safe. His phone buzzed at 0200, unknown number. You cost me $2 million, Walker. That has consequences. Bull deleted the message, didn't respond, but his hand tightened on the gun. At 0300, his phone buzzed again. Last chance. Walk away now or the girl dies. Your choice. Bull stood, moved to Lily's room, checked on her, still asleep, still safe. He went to the window. The black Suburban was back, parked in the lot, engine running. Bull made a decision. He grabbed his leather jacket, checked his gun, wrote a quick note for Lily in case she woke up. Went to check something. Back soon. Stay inside. Love, Bull. Then he walked out into the night. The parking lot was quiet. Desert air cold. Stars bright overhead. Bull walked directly to the Suburban. It didn't drive away this time. The back door opened. Victor Hale stepped out. Mr. Walker, bold of you to approach. You threatened a child. That's a line. Everything's a line until you cross it. Hale smiled. Those children were my property. You stole them. They're not property, they're kids. Semantics, I had buyers, contracts, $2 million. You cost me that. Good. Hale's smile faded. I could make you disappear, Mr. Walker. One phone call. You could try. I admire your courage. Stupidity, but courage. Hale stepped closer. Here's what's going to happen. You're going to sign over custody voluntarily, or accidents will happen. The girl will be hit by a car, the baby will have complications at the hospital, you'll wake up one morning and they'll be gone, and there won't be anything you can do about it. Bull stood very still. Combat training, calculating angles, threats, responses. Or, Hale continued, you could be smart. I'll pay you $100,000. Walk away. Let the system handle it. Everyone wins. Except the kids. The kids will be fine. Wealthy families. Good homes. Better than anything you could provide. Bull looked at Hale. Really looked at him. Saw the cold calculation. The complete absence of humanity. The kind of man who saw children as commodities. No, Bull said quietly. Excuse me. No, I'm not walking away. I'm not signing anything. Those kids stay with me. Hale's expression went cold. Then you're a dead man. Maybe, but I'm a dead man who'll take you with me. Hale reached into his jacket. Bull's hand went to his gun. Freeze, FBI! Lights blazed from every direction. Vehicles screeching into the parking lot. Armed agents emerging. Hale spun hands still in his jacket. Gun! Someone shouted. Bull tackled Hale before he could draw. They hit the pavement hard. Bull felt something crack under Hale's jacket. The gun skittered across the asphalt. Agents swarmed, pulled Bull off, secured Hale in cuffs. Deputy Carter appeared. You okay? Bull nodded, breathing hard, adrenaline crashing. We've been watching, Carter said. Had surveillance on Hale since the hearing. You walking out here gave us probable cause to move in. You just helped us nail a human trafficker. Hale was screaming threats as they loaded him into a federal vehicle. Promises of lawyers, lawsuits, revenge. The vehicle drove away. Bull stood in the parking lot watching it disappear. Hands shaking. Not from fear, from relief. It was over. Back in the apartment, Lily was awake, sitting on the couch with Bull's note in her hands. I thought you left, she said. No, kid. Just had to take care of something. Is it over, the bad man? Yeah, it's over. Lily started crying. Not sad tears, relief tears. The tears of someone who'd been holding their breath for 3 months and could finally exhale. Bull sat beside her. Let her cry. Didn't try to fix it or stop it. Just let her feel what she needed to feel. We're really safe, she asked finally. Yeah, we're really safe. And we can get Eli soon as the doctors say he's ready. Lily leaned against him, small and fragile and trusting. Thank you for not leaving. Bull put his arm around her shoulders. I made you a promise, kid. I keep my promises. They sat together in the quiet apartment watching the sunrise on a new day. 3 months later, Bull stood in the same courtroom. But everything was different. Judge Harrison smiled from the bench. We're here for final adoption proceedings. Mr. Walker, the CPS report indicates you've exceeded every requirement. How do you feel about making this permanent? Bull looked at Lily standing beside him, holding Eli, who was now healthy and laughing. Your Honor, they've been my kids since the day I found them. Just need the paperwork to make it official. Then let's make it official. The gavel struck. Lily and Eli Brennan became Lily and Eli Walker. Outside the courthouse, the old crew formed an honor guard. Traditional motorcycle club ritual transformed. They raised their arms, creating a human tunnel. Bull walked through, carrying Eli Lily beside him, each brother placing a hand on Bull's shoulder. Brother, father, family. Terry was last. You did it, Bull. Found your way home. Bull looked at his family, at his brothers, at the life he'd built from the wreckage of the old one. Yeah, he said. I guess I did. 5 years later, Bull stood in the diner parking lot at dawn, but he wasn't alone anymore. Lily sat behind him on the Harley, 12 years old now, wearing her own leather jacket. Eli was in the motorcycle-safe kid's seat chattering about starting school. A young woman approached, maybe 20, homeless, desperate. "Sir, I need help. My little sister is—" Bull stopped her gently. "Where is she?" The woman's eyes filled with hope. Bull looked at Lily, at Eli, at the life they'd built. "Let's start with breakfast," he said. "You hungry?" "Yes, sir." "Come on. And stop calling me sir. Name's Bull." They walked toward the diner together, 3 generations of protection, the cycle continuing. Bull pulled out his wallet. Inside were 2 photographs now, the old one of Catherine and Emma, the new one of Lily and Eli. Both families, both loved, both promises kept. The sun rose over El Paso, painting the desert gold. Bull Walker, former Marine, former Hell's Angel, former. Nobody walked into the diner with his family. He'd finally found his way home, and this time he wasn't alone.